So this is our old shock absorber, and the game here is pretty simple. The weight of the vehicle is supported by that stump on a jacking point under the body of the truck, and I have control of this suspension part here, the axle, with that jack, so that I can raise and lower it to deal with this shock. The shock's pretty easy. It's threaded on top, so I've got a nut up there I need to remove, and then at the bottom it's just a bolt going through the bottom of the shock. There it is. That has to be removed, and then I'll raise and lower this axle with that jack to make sure that I can line up the new shock in the position of this old one. I'm not going to video all of this for you because I'm going to be in there making love to that thing, and well, it's going to be kind of dirty. And there's not really going to be room for the camera. To give you a general idea of what I'm going to do here, I'm going to put a little penetrating oil on top of that shock on the nut, and I've got a proper sized wrench, in this case a 14mm, that, yeah, you can see why I'm doing it the way I'm doing it, because this is no fun. I'm going to try to get it just stuck in here. Wow, it doesn't want to fit. The other side was 14. Yeah, it's a 14. Alright, basically what I'm going to be doing here is I've got a wrench fitted to that nut, wedged here into the frame, and the game plan is that I will take out that bottom bolt, and then I'm just going to turn the body of this shock to get that nut off, instead of trying to get up in there and turn a wrench on it. I could probably do it from above with a deep socket, but then I'd have to figure out how to hold the shock still while I did that, so this is just the way I'm going to go on it. King Kong put this one together, and it's been way fun so far. But I got it to break loose. So I have this bolt out of the bottom, all pretty tight down there still. Let's fix that. And like I said, my intent is to twist the top half of this shock to loosen that nut on top, or remove it actually. See how tight it is? Oh yeah, it's gonna fight. So we need to get serious about all this now, but at least now I can turn this nut and hopefully get my wrench on better. So far so good, right? I'm gonna have to get the camera out of the way so I can mess with this. Alright, so I got that wrench wedged up in there. Let's see if we can see what I did there. Oh, hey, that looks like it ought to do, right? I guess we'll know in a minute. So my grip isn't what it used to be, and I'm not going to be able to turn this by hand, so I'm going to use my oil filter wrench. If you don't have a giant pair of channel locks for messing with old vehicles, you're missing out, because you can do a lot of things with them. I actually bought it as a oil filter wrench though, way back when I was working in a garage when I was a kid before I got my first art job. And that worked, didn't it? It sure did. Old rubbers. Alright, well, I'm going to go have a cup of coffee and a smoke and consider the errors of my ways that have led to this moment in my life, and then I'll come back out and put on that other shock. These shocks aren't nearly as wore out as the rears were. That's the job of a shock absorber, you know, is just to open and close real slow to absorb the shocks between the suspension and body of a vehicle. That was still kind of working, but it's not nearly as cool as the new ones. Got that going for me anyway. Alright, so we got our new shock and our bag of new junk. One of these washers is going to fit there. One of these fits like that. Now I'm going to go shove this back up into the bracket on the truck and put this other junk on. Alright, I've got that finger tight, and I got pretty good fingers for that, but it's not as good as they used to be. And anyway, it looks like I guessed pretty good about my jacking height and everything. I'm real close to being correct as far as the hole in the shock and the hole in the bracket lining up. It looks like the suspension is actually going to have to go up just a little bit, so that's perfect. So I'll just have to lift it with the jack and work on getting that bolt through. And again, I'm not going to try to film that for you because, well, just reasons and stuff. It's cramped in there. Here's one thing I will show you is I'm going to pry this bracket out just a little bit, probably with my big channel lock, so I'll get it in there and, you know, just kind of pull it out a bit. Or maybe I'll just go ahead and do it for you. See if I can get in there. Just want to move it just a fuzz because it's too tight. Whoever put that last shock on, they cranked this down really tight, like they were afraid that nut was going to, you know, like come off someday, or that somebody else was going to be in here eventually. And anyway, they pulled this bracket in, and it's just way too tight for messing with this shock. I'm not going to beat on my new shock to get it into that bracket, so we'll, you know, just have our way with it. There we go, that ought to do it. Let's find out. Yeah, that'll be better. Won't be near the beating around that there would be. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put that 14mm wrench on top of this shock again, and I'm just going to turn the shock to tighten it. What I'm looking for here is just a nice tight fit in here. I want that rubber to just kind of pinch down just a fuzz. Not looking to really reef all this together super tight, but it needs to be together well enough that Oh, you know, we don't want it coming apart, but we don't want to King Kong things either. Yeah, it looks pretty good. Alright, so now it's just a matter of banging this bottom together. So the idea is going to be to get the hole in the shock lined up with this hole, and we can obviously see that this piece needs to come up to meet the shock. So that looks like a pretty fair alignment between that hole and that hole, you know, side to side. And I will just put the jack on it and see about lifting this up and see if it'll slide into place. And then, you know, just slide the bolt back in and put the nut on it and call this done. Needs to come up just a fuzz more. I think that's our number. Yeah, that'd be us. Just like that. You notice the busted up rubber on that tie rod end? Pretty good indicator. I'm going to be looking at some tie rod ends pretty soon. You ever wondered about that jack handle I cut up to make a receiver? I added a piece of pipe to it. Nice fat one I got a hold of.